What chances do you give Steph to win another MVP this season?
Slim, very slim. I wouldn't say none because he's the greatest shooter I've ever seen in my life. And obviously he's capable of exploding, but I'll give it a slim chance simply because of the team that he's on. As great as he is, and even though he's the catalyst, he's the straw that stirs that cup in Golden State, the reality is you have one of the top 3 players on the planet, and Kevin Durant is your teammate. You've got one of the top 5 greatest shooters we've ever seen in NBA history as a backcourt mate in Klay Thompson. So there's plenty of nights where you're going to have to share the wealth. LeBron is not going to have to share the wealth to that degree. The Greek Freak is not going to have to share the wealth to that degree. Anthony Davis is not going to have to share the wealth to that degree. Kawhi Leonard is not going to have to share the wealth to that degree. So because of that reality, I would tell you that the chances are slim, but I can never say zero with the greatest shooter we have ever seen in our lifetime.
He's not going to win the MVP. And there are 3 reasons. You just hit the first one. There are shots to go around on the Warriors. They play unselfishly. KD, Klay Thompson. A lot of guys are going to score. His counting numbers won't be there like some other guys. That's 1. 2, this is almost like the college polls before the season. You know, like opinions of writers and stuff affect who's going to get to the playoff in college. Because if you start from a higher position, you have less to do to get to the playoff. It's people's opinions actually affect this stuff. And the narrative that we all write before the season affects who's going to win the MVP. So Westbrook had a triple-double one year, and it was his turn to win the MVP anyway, right? And then he had another triple-double the next year. Not his turn anymore, next guy up. What was the narrative before this season? LeBron's going to win the MVP. His competition will come from from AD, from Anthony Davis. And maybe if a guy like the Greek Freak gets a jump shot, maybe even if he doesn't, he's going to be in that conversation. The die has been cast. It's not Steph's turn. That's 2. And finally, 3, and I think this actually plays a part. There was a moment 3 years ago where it looked like it wasn't fair. In any other era, LeBron would be better than Steph. But there was a moment toward the end of that regular season, the 73-win season, where it looked like, you know what? Fair or not, the way the game is played today and what Steph can do, he's the best player in basketball. Space Jam, he should play the Jordan character because this is really his world. And the kids relate to him because the baby face, and he's not as big and strong and fast and doesn't jump as high as everyone. It looks like, hey, maybe I could do that. The kids watching basketball, like this was his NBA. And then the finals rolled around, and LeBron owned him. He blocked his shot. He screamed on him. Steph was missing shots. He wasn't coming up big. LeBron was. And in our psyches now, in a real way, after that finals, no, Steph can't be the best player in basketball. We believe that. I don't think if Steph is going to win another MVP, it's going to be after a postseason where we look at him and go, whoa, he just carried the Warriors to another championship.
What do you mean
and
after
not until then. After a playoffs end and the Warriors are crowned champs, and unlike KD who won the MVP the past 2 of the finals the past 2 seasons, we look and say, Steph is the reason they won that finals. I think then we can get over the psychological hump and going into the next year, particularly if they were to lose KD, he could rack up the stats. It might be his turn again. But right now, the narrative is it's not his turn.
Well, listen, I don't believe that's the narrative. That's number 1. Number 2, you talk about his turn, and you use Russell Westbrook as a prime example. No, it wasn't at the beginning of the season that Russell Westbrook was going to be ordained league MVP the year that he won it. It was after he was putting up triple-doubles after triple-doubles, night after night after night. As a matter of fact, we walked into the season wondering about the quality of the Oklahoma City Thunder because Kevin Durant had just left. Number 3, I will say this as an aside. I'd be negligent in failing to bring this out. John Wall is an all-star. John Wall is somebody for the Washington Wizards. He is the face of the franchise, a guy that we both have expressed a genuine affection for in terms of how he plays the game on both ends of the floor, his athleticism, his willingness to push the ball up the floor, et cetera, et cetera. I understand you can't beat Steph Curry. But when Steph Curry is dropping 51 points on you, 13 ain't gonna cut it. Not if you're an all-star.
What's John Wall got to do with this?
No. I said as an aside. I did preface my comment saying as an aside. I did say that. And last but not least, to get back to my point about Steph Curry and why I don't think he's gonna win the MVP. Quietly, just as another aside, but relevant to this topic. What did Kevin Durant have last night? 30. Now, the possibilities of Steph Curry having 51 points and shooting 14 or 20 from the field and hitting 11 three-pointers, as prolific and sensational as he is, That's not going to happen almost every night. Almost every night you're going to see Kevin Durant drop 30.
Let's say you say, well, Westbrook, the die wasn't cast before the season. It's what he did during the season. Right. But then the following year, doesn't matter. He could do a triple-double again. Doesn't matter. We already gave him the MVP.
No, it mattered because James Harden was sensational. James Harden was sensational.
If Steph Curry did something like, I don't know exactly what it would be, but something like Westbrook's triple-double this year and wound up as the best player.
If Harden had faded off, we would have voted for Russell Westbrook again. But Harden was sensational last year.
I think Max has a point. There are narratives going into the season. I don't know that Russell Westbrook's the best example. It might actually be James Harden who was the best example because the league felt like it owed him one going into that year. But I think you both are laying out the reasons it's going to be hard for Steph. Expectations, narrative, one-man shows out there. Let me ask you this. There's several guys that check those boxes, right? You also need something new. People got tired of giving it to Jordan. Got to give one to Malone. The guys you said, Stephen A., are the ones you'd have to say this early in the season, check all those boxes.
Sure.
Giannis in Milwaukee. You got AD in New Orleans, and you've got Kawhi in Toronto. If I gave you those three,
personally speaking,
that I think all three of them check those boxes.
Personally speaking, I'm going to say this. I think Anthony Davis may have elevated himself, but not just because of his play. Dare I say I need to take some credit for it. I think if Anthony Davis ends up winning the league MVP this year, I'm going to have everything to do with it because everybody's going to remember how I kept joking about the Smoothie King Arena and how the hell nobody's playing at the Smoothie King Arena is going to get awarded league MVP. This dude is going out doing what he customarily does. He's averaging better than 28 and 11 like he did the last two seasons. We know how fantastic and phenomenal he's been.
But it may be his turn.